Alright, and this is our precalculus inverse function. Okay, it's pretty cool and easy, and let's start. Okay, what we're trying to do here. What we are trying to do here is taking the value, converting into an angle. Okay, what we did before. What we used to do is, like, for example, sine of an angle, for example, pi by 6 is equal to half. So converting angle to the value. Now what we're going to do is take the value here, 1 by 2, and do sine inverse of that value, and it's going to become what? Pi by 6. That's going to become the inverse of the value is going to become the angle. So let's start doing that. There are only two things you need for this part. One is this your unit circle. All you got to remember is these three angles, and what is the value on these three angles. There are lower angle, higher, and medium and higher, and there are lower y value, medium y, and highest y value, right? So there are only three values: half, 1 over 2 square root, and 3 square root over 2. Okay, only three values. You can call this 1 over 2, 2 square root over 2, 3 square root over 2. So 1, 2 square root, 3 square root. See how it is changing? Smallest, medium, and biggest. Okay, the medium, both are the same on medium side. That's how it is changing from pi by 6, pi by 4 to pi by 3 angle. Okay, over here, you know that is 1 and 0. X is equal to 1, y is equal to 0, right? So whatever is on x is cosine theta. Whenever you have a theta with a unit circle, x component or x shadow is cosine theta, y shadow is sine theta. So what all you want to do is that just do the y over x to find your tangent. So you can have cosine, sine, and tangent. And you can calculate all that. Tangent will be 0 here, infinity at pi over 2 and minus pi over 2. The other thing you got to remember here is for one-to-one functions or for inverse function, when you go inverse, there can be a lot of points, a lot of angles you can map into. So half is going to be either pi by 6 for sine theta, or this angle pi by 6, or any angle by adding 2 pi to these two angles, right? This is not right for any function. For function, definition of function, when you convert one to another, you do a vertical line test. And if it doesn't pass vertical line test, it is not a function. So to define a function, we're going to say that we're going to limit the angle where you can have all positive and negative values and not repeat it. So you cannot repeat the angle. So for those values, we're going to say for sine and tangent is minus pi by 2 to pi by 2, right half of the angle. That is the only right half of the circle. That are the only angles we're going to talk about. For cosine, because in even function, we're going to have from 0 to pi. Okay, that's what we're going to define. Otherwise, if we have the right half of the circle, cosine is going to be always positive, but we want positive and negative values. So we're going to have from 0 to pi for cosine, minus pi by 2 to pi by 2 for tangent and sine. But look, tangent is undefined on certain values. At minus pi by 2 and plus pi by 2, it is undefined. So that particular point will not be included in the range, or in the domain of tangent, because it's not defined. For cosine and sine, it is included. The endpoints are included, which are different for cosine and sine. Okay, then you gotta remember all these three things. We just talked about these. All shadows, since unit circle, are between minus 1 and 1. Minus 1 and 1. So sine is gonna be between minus 1 and 1. Cosine is gonna be between minus 1 and 1. So tangent is gonna be positive infinity to negative infinity. We just talked about why it is, because y over x, right? And x is 0 at two places, so it's going to become infinity and positive and negative. So what is the y? The angle. So it's converting the value on the x-axis to an angle on the y-axis. So you're gonna see that this is just the waveform of sinusoidal or cosine waveform. Just we shifted, instead of having on x-axis, we're gonna have the same waveform on y-axis. That's all it is, nothing different. And angle we used to have on x-axis, now we're gonna have angle on y-axis. On sine and tangent, we're gonna go minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. On cosine, we're gonna go from 0 to pi. 0 to pi, okay, because so that we can have all the values. Still the period is pi here, period is pi here, or not the period but the total width, and total width is pi here, okay. This picture is not necessarily scaled because you see from 0 to pi by 2 here, 0 to pi here, so it should be double actually to show the same scale. Let's do some examples here, okay. So this is all the information that you need for everything, okay. Let's say cos inverse of minus pi by minus 2 square root over 2. Okay, this was the middle one, right? And the angle is pi by 4, right? And it's negative. So cosine is negative when the angle is on this coordinate, right? So it will be pi by 2 plus pi by 4, right? It's gonna be 3 pi by 4. Okay, this is the angle pi by 4 from 0, right? So it's gonna be basically pi plus pi by 4, 3 pi by 4, this angle in the middle. Arc cos minus 2. Oh, minus 2. Did you notice something here? The value cannot be more than, value has to be between what? 0 and 1, okay? On x-axis for cos and sine, right? So it's gonna be not possible. Minus 2, 9, domain, or does not exist, we should say. What is cos inverse 0? You know, cos 0 was 0, right? Cos is the, sine 0 is 0, sorry. Cos is 0 at pi by 2. Or actually could be 0 at minus pi by 2. So it could be either pi by 2 or minus pi by 2. I would think we'll probably just take pi by 2, but I will check. Let's check it. It is only positive pi by 2 is taken, right? Oh, you know what? Because cosine was from 0 to pi, right? Not from plus pi by 2 to minus pi by 2. That makes sense. So it can't be minus pi by 2 because the domain is from 0 to pi. Alright, even function, forgot. Okay. 2a, cosine inverse minus 3 by 2. Okay, this one was a bigger angle, right? A bigger value, right? So minus 3 over 2, minus 3 over 2, this is a bigger value for cosine, right? So it's gonna be smaller angle here, right? From this line, and bigger angle from this line, which is gonna be what? 150 or 5 pi by 6, okay? Or cos 2.5, okay. What happened here? Again, does not exist, right? Because the value has to be, when you convert to angle, the value has to be between, for sine and cos, between minus 1 and 1. Cos inverse minus half, okay, this is the minus half for cos, okay, the smallest value of the shadow, right? And this is your shadow on x-axis, smallest shadow. So this value is 2 pi by 3, right? That was 6, from this line it is 60 degrees, or pi by 3, right? From this line it is 2 pi by 3, okay? So it is 2 pi by 3. That's all you gotta know for this. Alright, let's do the next one. Okay, let's do the next one. Sine inverse half. Sine inverse of half. This is half and this is sine on the right side, and sine is minus pi by 4 minus pi by 2 to pi by 2, right? Sine inverse half is pi by 6. Okay. Sine inverse of the middle point, but negative this time, is pi by 4, but negative pi by 4, right? This is the middle point, right? 2 square root over 2, but negative this time, so it's minus pi by 4 starting from x. Cosine inverse of x, so this angle we should write from starting from here, so we should write minus pi by 6, pi by 4, and minus pi by 3, okay? This is not written properly, so we need to have another circle to do that. Okay, so then the next one is square root 3 over 2 arc sine. This is the highest value for sine, right? Y-axis, highest value, highest angle on x. This y-axis, highest value, okay? This is the highest angle, which is pi by 3, right? So it is kind of pi by 3. Sine inverse minus 2 pi, and remember, sine inverse, we can always take off a value. What is the value here? I think value is about 6 point something, right? Which is wrong, does not exist. It has to be between minus 1 and 1. Arc sine of minus 1. So sine of minus 1. So sine is 1 here, minus 1 here. So it's minus pi over 2. Right? That's all. That's all we're going to know here. Okay.